Hello, friends. My name is Chuck Betters, and I'm coming to you from the Help and Hope podcast. This is a ministry of MARKINC Ministries, and I am thrilled today to have with us Barb Bollinger. I work alongside Barb at a ministry called Path to Freedom. My wife Melanie and I are serving as house parents here at Path to Freedom for girls rescued from human trafficking. And Barb is the development director of the ministry. She does a fantastic job in not only spreading the word and getting resources out there so that people understand the magnitude of this incredible problem, but she also raises money. She does incredible events for the ministry, and it's just been a great joy for Melanie and I to not only work here at Path to Freedom, but to get to work with someone like Barb. Barb, welcome to Help and Hope.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor. So thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, the honor is ours to have you here and to hear about this ministry. And I just thought that this would be a great chance for people who don't know a lot about human trafficking to learn about what it is, what the problem is. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, and also just to hear about some of the great things happening at Path to Freedom and how people can support it, maybe just even in prayer. We desperately need your prayers for these precious girls and the girls who are yet to come. And so, Barb, can we start off by having you share a basic definition of what human trafficking is, and maybe just wrap in some of the misconceptions and who these girls are. We can't share specifics, but yet just maybe some general details about the kinds of girls that come to us.
Yeah. And, before I got into this position, I did think I knew a lot about human trafficking. And then obviously with what I do and going around and trying to spread awareness, doing a lot of research on my own and attending a lot of different seminars and learning more about it, I have found that there are a lot of misconceptions out there. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this and to just continue to spread the word about, what is it and what is it that we need to be aware of just as parents, people in society, people, that anything that you see that you can say something about and things that we can do to help and obviously to pray for. So to give you the official definition, it is human trafficking is modern day slavery and involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. And in the United States, about 70% of human trafficking, the majority is sex trafficking. We do have labor trafficking as well. That happens to be a bigger problem in other countries more than here, but it's still definitely a problem. And when it comes to minors, which of course is who we serve at Path to Freedom, anyone under the age of 18, whether or not they say that they did this voluntarily and were not coerced into it, it is still considered illegal. And one of the biggest myths is, how does this happen? How do these kids get brought into trafficking? And of course, what makes the news, what makes great movies and sensationalism is the abductions or kidnapping, which does happen. I don't want to belittle the fact that, you do need to be aware that that can happen. But unfortunately, it's happening right under the own roof that they're living in. So the number one way kids are brought into human trafficking is through their own family members, very sadly. Parents, extended family members are unfortunately doing this to their own children. And very close second to that is a trusted relationship, particularly something like a boyfriend relationship. And when it comes to children, they're very trusting of their caregivers. They're very trusting of anyone that's willing to take them under their wing, love them, give them acceptance, and to slowly what they're doing really is grooming them. So it always starts as an innocent relationship usually, and then they're through manipulation and what we actually call Romeo tactics when it comes to a boyfriend, and luring them into eventually convincing them to do these acts for them. And suddenly they find themselves being trafficked. And oftentimes they actually don't identify themselves as victims of human trafficking because of how they got into it and who got them into it. They're thinking either that, I'm doing this is something I do because my parents are making me do it, and this is how we bring in money for the family, I'm helping them. Or with the boyfriend relationship, it's just something that I'm doing as part of maintaining this love that I need from this other person. So those are really the main reasons. Over 80% of kids that are brought into human trafficking are from those two sources.
Yeah, so many times we do have girls who come to us who really do fit the mold of the Sound of Freedom movie that everybody's been seeing, where maybe they're overseas, and we can't give specifics out, but we have had those types of situations. But yes, it's been shocking to see that so many of these girls, it happens right in the midst of their family. Many times, sometimes it's that it's an uncle or it's a dad or even a mom who is things like legitimately the one trafficking, or in other cases, it's just the bad home environment that leads to them being lured by a boyfriend or somebody from the outside.
Right.
So it may not specifically be the parents, but it stems from, I don't want to say bad parenting, but bad parenting. It stems from problems in their lives, and then it happens. And so, yeah, it's that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about this.
And it's really it's the most vulnerable in our society, and children are one of the most vulnerable. And if they come from any kind of bad, dysfunctional family situations, and particularly foster children, they're already very traumatized because they're in foster care. They're much more likely to run away. Very high percentage of children that are in foster care run away. And so they're so susceptible to the lures of trafficking because they are just looking for that love and acceptance and caregiver type of feeling as children.
Yeah. When I was going through the training and we were listening to all of the DVDs and watching the DVDs, and now I'm dating myself, DVD, it was on the computer. Yeah. So whatever it was that we were watching, the videos, the training videos, they were all like, as you can imagine, because it's the state of Florida, there's certain parameters that they have to abide by, and everything's very politically correct. But then there was this one video where it was an older man, and I think he was very well respected in the field of psychology and just child psychology. And you could just tell by the crowd's reaction to him that they really liked him and they really wanted to hear what he had to say. And he was so raw and honest. And he talked about the ACE studies, the adverse childhood experiences that these kids will face. And there was a big study done where, when you're an adult, you go back and you look back at your childhood and you answer these questions about, did you ever feel like you would be abandoned? Did your parents ever, abuse you? Like different questions. And your ACE score, however many of those that you answer yes, is predictive of how terrible your life is going to be. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but just your health, it affects your relationships. It affects everything. And so he was kind of unwrapping all of that in a really plain way. And then at the end, he said, and I've been thinking about this pretty much my entire life. What can be done? And he said, and the only thing I could come up with is nationwide parenting classes. And I thought that's not politically correct, but I thought it was, he said that, right. It really does start with the family. He said that this issue is a systemic issue of just tough situations that happen in the context of families. And I know that we've seen that at Path to Freedom. Yeah.
And often I get asked, okay, you rescued these girls from trafficking. Why aren't they, back with their families? So aren't they looking for them? Don't they want them? And I explain, well, oftentimes it's the family situation that got them into the situation they're in, got them trafficked in the first place. And it may not be the family that specifically did it, but it's because of whatever issues are going on in that child's life that got them drawn into it, whether it was a boyfriend situation or an extended family member or whatever it is that got them. They're more vulnerable to being lured into those things than a child that's been brought up into just a healthier home life. And in fact, one documentary that I've been recommending that people see, it's long, but it's called Contraland. And it's an hour and a half. You can look it up on YouTube. It was created through the Veterans for Child Rescue. And this Contraland, there's a portion of it where there's an undercover agent who is talking about the 3 years that he spent undercover. And because, there's a lot, this happened to be with boys. So, this happens to boys too. We often talk about girls. That's who we serve at Path to Freedom. Over 90% of the victims that are rescued are girls. So this still is a majority a quote, girl problem. But we know there's a lot of this is happening to boys and men, but it's just not coming out. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. So I've been seeing a lot more special information, particularly trying to make people aware this happens to boys and men as well. So in this, as I'm going on about this, so there's an organization called NAMBLA, North American Man Boy Love. Totally disgusting. This undercover agent was with them for 3 years. This is part of this documentary. He was with them for 3 years. And what he found was, and what they do is they're teaching in this secret society, they're teaching men how to lure boys into, encouraging this relationship and luring boys into having these relationships with them. What he said, I'm not a scientist, this isn't scientific information, but in the 3 years that I was undercover, not one boy was ever actually succumbed to luring them into these relationships if he had some kind of good, loving father type of relationship in his life. So he said it didn't have to be an actual father, but he had a father figure in his life. And these boys were looking for a father figure. And so that's what made them susceptible to these men. So it's so important, it keeps going back to this, traditional family environment that really makes a difference for these kids in how vulnerable they are.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into Path to Freedom and the model, the family first model, which is not a model that every organization uses. But I guess I'm a living testimony of that sitting here today. To have that father figure in these girls' lives it's different. It's a different kind of model. But just speak to that, speak to the importance of the family first model and the uniqueness of that at Path to Freedom.
Yeah. So as you know, so when Anna designed this, her mission definitely was to make this feel like a family, and that these girls were not going into a group home. This wasn't some kind of program that was 30, 60 or 90 days that they were going through, but they're actually part of a family. And so just that feeling of feeling like they belong and having a family environment they've never actually probably experienced before, and particularly having a married couple that they can see an example of, what does a normal, healthy married relationship look like? And what does a healthy father figure look like? And having a good relationship with a father figure, because as you know, most of these girls have never either had a real relationship with their dads or had a healthy relationship with a male in general. So, some may think like, oh, why do you have a man in the house? These girls, this may be traumatic for them. Well, no, this is really about feeling like a family. So, and of course, there's a mom there, that we have lots of female staff. We have lots of female volunteers. There's lots of other women that are around, but we still want them to be able to experience that, because that is part of their long-term recovery. They need to be able to see, when they decide to get married, start dating, what does it look like to be married and have a healthy relationship with a man? And what does a real father, look like? God bless you. God bless Melanie. You two do just amazing, amazing work as parents in the home. And the other couple that we had before, they were also really, really good house parents, but it's what a, unique and special calling, because it is, I did overnights, I've done them. I know how hard that is. So, it's very emotional, and there's so many different organizations involved in human trafficking. And I really believe that this is by far one of the hardest ones to do, because this, especially the long-term recovery. And of course, the other piece is the people that are out there risking their lives, like the Sound of Freedom, that are going out undercover with these criminals that are very, very dangerous in saving these victims. But it's because it's a long road. Once they get into recovery, this is, Yes. And every girl's situation is different. And then that's the other thing that we do at Path to Freedom, is every girl is treated differently in terms of her recovery plan and with their schooling and education. is also another huge piece of their recovery because they're usually so far behind in their schooling. We know public schools are not a safe place for them, especially just coming out of trafficking, and they need that one-on-one attention. So I think, between the family first model of care and the on-site education are two of the primary things that are really so important to their long-term recovery.
Yeah, you mentioned Anna, and you're referring to Anna Stevenson, who is the founder of the ministry. And just to give a short plug, I'm going to be interviewing Anna in the same format in the next couple of weeks or so. And so this is, and I also interviewed the program director, Fawn Volker, and that was more along the lines of her story and her background. We did touch on Path to Freedom, and so you're the second installment from Path to Freedom, and I'll be interviewing Anna. And so Anna is really an incredible person. It takes a pretty amazing person for me to want to follow them, and she's one of the people I would follow, and I do follow her. And so she tells a story about the one girl that really kind of got to her heart and led to her starting the ministry. So can you just share a little bit about that to give a little teaser on our upcoming interview with Anna Stevenson?
Yeah, so it was back in 2015, and she was invited to hear the testimony of a particular girl that had been trafficked for 2.5 years, and she was local. For 2.5 years, she was lured into it by an extended family member. She was forced to have sex on a daily basis and was put on drugs, got hooked on drugs. And one particular night, she recalls having had sex with over 50 men. And, the question was brought up, well, if you're on drugs, how do you know that that's happened? Well, apparently how she would report back to the pimp on how many Johns she'd served, as they came into the room after they were done, they would leave a poker chip on the table, and she would count the chips each night. And she counted over 50 chips in one night. And just the thought, the horror to think that this is going on like day after day to this girl. She actually even was impregnated while this happened and still was forced to have sex with Johns for the first 6 months of her pregnancy. She does have an amazing, wonderful recovery story, which, praise God for that. So, but just hearing that and knowing this was happening locally and having 4 daughters of her own, thinking, oh my God, this could happen to my own kids. It's not just a problem that happens in other countries or in poor neighborhoods. This is happening right here in good old Naples, Florida. So that was really what, and she couldn't sleep, and she just, God was tugging at her heart, felt that she had to do something about it. And that's when she started Path to Freedom just a few months later that year. And when she started it as an advocacy organization. So she became a licensed advocate. And what that is like a central point of contact for the girls. As soon as they're rescued, she was helping them, getting their medical needs, working through their cases with law enforcement, any kind of therapy that they need, as well as finding them a safe place to stay. And by far the hardest thing for her to find was that safe bed, that safe place to stay, which then led to deciding, we need a home for these girls. Mm-hmm. And then switching the mission to the Magnolia House model and the family first trauma-informed care. And so around 2018 is when they found the property of Magnolia House. Obviously took renovation time, getting it staffed up, getting the program together, and really taking all the knowledge that she had learned from all of these different pieces of the recovery and really just putting it all into one place within the Magnolia House program. So that, and then of course we started the Magnolia House, amazingly opened right in the middle of the pandemic in March of 2020. So it's been about 3.5 years since the safe home's been open, and so far we've served 19 girls.
So we've served 19 girls. One of the questions that I get a lot, one of the very first questions that I'm asked by church people who are interested in the ministry, people who are just wondering about whether they should support it or not. Tell me, Barb, what's the first question I get asked?
So how many girls are in the home? How many girls do you see?
Bingo. Every time. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. And we didn't plan.
What?
We did not even talk about it, but that is the very first question I get. And I think it comes from a good heart. I understand the question. I would probably ask that. I feel like I would ask it, though. I would hope I would ask it from the heart of how many, just informationally, how many girls are able to be served in a house like this, and what's that look like? But many times that holds people back from supporting it in a way that I think is unfortunate, because when you look at the scriptures, you see that Jesus was always ministering to the masses. He fed the 5,000. He's preaching to many. The throngs of the people were pressing in to touch him. But he also had an incredibly equally intense ministry to the one. He had a ministry, when you look at Luke 15, the lost coin, searching the house up and down to find that precious lost coin, leaving the 99 sheep to go after the one. His disciples even, he had 12 disciples, and then he had an inner circle of 3 that he really ministered to. And so we need both. We need the ministries that reach out to the masses, but we also need the ministries like Path to Freedom that are reaching out to the one or to the few. I mean, we've had 4 girls here, 5 girls here. The house can have up to 6. And let me tell you, as someone who's here and who's actually ministering to them, that's plenty. Not only is it plenty, but it's exponential over time. When you think of just a few short years, it's already been 19 girls. If people continue to be faithful, continue to support this ministry, and continue to believe in their hearts that Jesus came for the one, we could reach hundreds of girls over the course of a decade. And then more houses could pop up. I mean, because this house is really a model for future houses. We really need more of these houses, not only in Florida, but all over the country. And I could see Path to Freedom doing that. I mean, we have a very big vision. Can you just talk a little bit about what that vision looks like, the longer term vision of Path to Freedom?
Yeah. So right now we're in the middle of a capital campaign in order to actually purchase a property so that we can have a second home and really just duplicate what we're doing at the Magnolia House. And obviously instantly, once we have a second home, we can literally double the amount of girls that we're serving. But ultimately the vision is for a campus model, but that takes a lot of money and a lot of investment. So we know, we're proving out the model right now by starting with the Magnolia House. We've now been doing this for over 3 years. We've learned a lot through that time. And I think we've gotten to a point where, okay, now we're ready to duplicate this and get a second property. And we also, of course, want to spread out our locations so that we are serving in different parts of the state of Florida. So our current home's in Lee County. We are targeting Collier County for the second home. Yes. And then, of course, eventually this campus model, we could actually serve up to 50 girls at one time, which would be multiple homes. And the bigger we get, you also get economies of scale. There's obviously, certain things that you're not going to duplicate. You're not going to have more than one development director. You're not going to, and the learnings and the sharing between multiple homes and working with different girls, and also finding, if girls are working better in one home versus another, there's so much possibility with having a bigger footprint. So, because that is another big question we get, is how much it costs. And when there's the question of like, oh, you only have 5 girls in the house, then how much is that costing per girl? But when you think about, this is called lifelong, we're talking about long-term recovery. Yes. So we definitely don't want to be spending money where these kids are just coming in and going out, and then they're just going back to whatever it is lifestyle that they were living before. Because some of this is all cyclical from family to family and something that's been passed down. And oftentimes, the abusers are ones that have been abused themselves. Sure. And so we want to stop that cycle. And so helping the one girl is probably, in most cases, helping other people in the future that she could be impacting if she was not recovered. So
her own daughters, her own sons, just helping and breaking those generational sins is just so important. And so I mean, I'll go to my grave fighting for the fact that we have to minister to the one. I mean, I think that the American church would do a really great job of ministering to the masses. And I think there's a lot of great ministries that also minister to the one. And we can't discount that. Another question that I get asked is about, is it a faith-based ministry? And it is. I mean, that we have to be sensitive to the fact that the girls who come to us, we can't force religion on them. We can't force them to. And what's been really beautiful about it is we haven't done that at all. But the girls have come, and I think that just shows that in the scriptures, Jesus talks about all who the Father gives to me will come to me, that my sheep know my voice, and all who come to me I will never turn away. And so we're seeing the girls coming to Jesus. We're seeing them on their own, not us jamming it down their throats. In fact, that's one of the things that I'm kind of known for, is not doing that, especially with the teens and with the kids in my previous ministry. I would always raise all the objections of Christianity to them, because I wanted them to hear those objections before they got to college and to really work through those. And so I'll ask them, are you sure? Are you sure? What about this? What about this? Are you sure that you, and these girls they're hungry for the word. They want to study the Bible. Melanie will study the Bible with them. So when people ask about, well, is this just kind of a social thing where you're just part of the state? Yes, we are. And we abide by all those guidelines. But because we're permitted to make it a faith-based ministry, and if the girls are willing, we're able to share our faith freely with them. And it's just been a beautiful thing to see that and to see how God has carried that along.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, DCF needs us. We
Yes.
are there's a huge need for the CSEC, which stands for Commercially Sexually Exploited Child, CSEC licensed safe homes, which we are, in fact, there's only 31 safe beds in the state of Florida. Last year,
Wow.
DCF reported 337, just last year, identified CSEC children. There's only 31 safe beds. We're part of that 31. And in fact, the year before, I think there was 56. So there were actually several homes that closed. And one of them was a boys' home. There was only one boys' home in all of Florida, and that closed.
Oh, my.
And it's because it's so hard, as we're talking about. It's
Yes.
hard to get people to want to support it because it is, it's expensive, and there's the emotional, and just for the staff, I mean, the dedication to really wanting to continue no matter what, helping these children. It's hard, but also DCF knows, because, I mean, they're so impressed with what I hear. And again, I'm talking secondhand here through their audits and where they're coming. And you probably know this more firsthand, is they are so impressed with what we're doing. And sometimes it's just because the house is clean, and it's one of the cleanest safe homes they've seen. And so there's something about being faith-based that is making this extra special. And so they're not going to be hyper analyzing how it is that we're using that, with these girls. And so I think that's another misconception. I think that because we are licensed through DCF, that somehow we can't minister to these girls, or, that they're not going to be able to come to Christ through us. And they do, as your example, but
they
the
do.
first thing
Also, yeah. And one of the things that, we also do here is the education aspect of it. It's just a really first-rate organization. I can say that because I've only been part of it for over about a year and a few months. And so I didn't start it. Anna started it. Well, the Lord started it through her, but I'm just so impressed with every aspect of the organization, with what you do, with what the workers here do. And one of the things that we have really focused on since we got here is the educational piece of it. And so these girls come to us and they're so behind in their schooling, and the schooling and education is so important. And so these girls need one-on-one tutoring. They need instruction. They need the intensity of it. They go to school with us year round. They don't like that very much, but it's interesting. They kind of know that they need it. The other day I was listening to one of the girls reading. She was reading out loud with the tutor, just reading out loud. English is her second language. And she's just reading so expressively. And I'm thinking, wow, I mean, she's learned English with us in just such a short time. And it's because of the dedicated staff and volunteers who work with these girls one-on-one in the education department. Can you just speak to the importance of education? And I know that it's different from other ministries, the great focus that we have on that here.
Yeah, there are other safe homes that, of course, the kids do go to public school. And so, that was another important piece of the vision that Anna had, was that we would do homeschooling and have an on-site school, so that for safety was one of the main reasons. But like you were just saying, the education for anyone's future, if they're not educated enough to get a job and take care of themselves, then they may fall back on, selling my body is the only way I can make money,
Sure.
or getting into drugs trafficking or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's so important. And then it actually brings this self-confidence, as you see, and we talk about the light and the life coming back into their eyes. Yes. All of a sudden they're saying, oh, I can have a future for myself that's completely different than anything I thought I could have. And it's wide open, and so much can come through education and learning. And I know, your wife and the background that she has, and maybe you want to speak to that, but, having her there to help guide how we are doing the home education there is really a blessing for us as well, because it's just such a huge part of their recovery.
It's a huge part. And Melanie, my wife, Melanie, she comes from where she was on the administrative team for a homeschooling co-op that had upwards of 300 students at one point. It's just a really dynamic ministry. It's still a dynamic ministry today. And so having her here to really help guide that, it's been pretty incredible to see. And it's been amazing to see the people that God has brought to us, the great educators. We have fantastic educators that are working with these girls one-on-one. And it's really labor intensive. To some of the girls, they come to us at a 4th or 5th grade level, and we have to bring them up. If they were to go to a public school, they might fall through the cracks. They might just advance them. Girls might just cheat their way through. I mean, who knows? But they're getting that foundation here. And the schoolhouse is right here on campus, and it's just such a beautiful, wonderful model to be a part of. So
they can't hide. They can't get pushed through. They
can't get pushed through. And sometimes they're frustrated with that. Yeah. Yeah. So
they got to do the work, and they got to learn it.
They got to do the work. That's right.
I do these interviews with these girls every so often, just to get quotes that we can share, because we don't share we keep their background so confidential. And that's another thing that does make it hard for all of us talking about what it is we do, because the next question is, can we see a survivor? Can we listen to a survivor? Can she tell us about her experience?
Right.
And that's another, hurdle that we have in doing what we do, especially with minors. So the only thing we can really get from them are these quotes through these interviews. Yeah. We don't share the pictures. We don't record their faces or voices. And we don't obviously share what their real name is. Right. And some of them, and I'd love to share a couple of those, awesome. Some of these are just the personal growth that they've had. And, since I've been with Path to Freedom, I started as a volunteer actually in the beginning before taking this role back in 2020. So it was back, I've been around since the house was open, and it's been really interesting seeing the journey of all of the different girls over time, and how, I've heard about how they were when they first came to us. And then by the time, wait a little while till I spend some time with them to interview, okay, you've been with us for a while, what are your opinions on these things? And I'm always surprised at how grown up they are in their answers. And sometimes you think, are they just trying to tell me what I want to hear?
No, they never do that. Sometimes I wish they would do that. Just tell me what I want to hear. One of the things I've learned about them is they are so honest. I've told people, and I want to get to these quotes, but I've shared with people because they ask me how this is here. And I say, it shines a light on everything about you and who you are as a person, as an individual working here in this house and being their father figure. Melanie has told me, she told me early on, she said, you have to just even watch your expressions, like even your face. And I'm like, what? This is my face. This is what my face looks like. I'm sorry. But she said, well, they'll ask me, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong, Dad? What's wrong? Some of them do call me Dad, which has been interesting. And I love that. And I never force that on them, but they'll ask me and I'll say, nothing's wrong. I'm just old. I don't know. My face just looks like this. And so you have to watch your expressions. There's cameras everywhere in the entire house. We have to have that for protection. And so you always know that you're on camera. It's not like people are, watching it and just, being voyeuristic, but it's there just in case there's a problem, just in case there's an issue. But their cameras are there. And so you have to be careful. And it's really interesting how it works into your sanctification as a Christian, as a believer, is to say, all right, if everybody could see me and how I'm behaving, what would they see? What would the cameras show? I heard a sermon this past week. It was on James chapter 1, I believe, on anger and on holding our tongues and being slow to speak, quick to listen. And the pastor said, it was Pastor Trent at Covenant Church, and he said, you have to ask yourself, if people were to see you, if they were to see you on video, is this the kind of anger that produces the righteousness of God? And everybody started laughing because we all knew, no, it's not. And so I'm constantly on video, and I just feel like, we've grown so much. Melanie didn't have to change anything because she's already she's so close to the Lord and just fantastic. And I just changed a few things here and there, mostly just expressions. But anyway, I don't know why I went on that subject, but continue to share. What are some of the good things that have been said? And I think it's just good because you're the fruit of the ministry. And one of the things I know what I wanted to say is, before you share that, is just to share with people, we have seen incredible change in girls. And those of you who know me, you know that I can be cynical at times about, things changing and things like that. But I have to say that we have seen total change in girls, and it's only the Lord that can do that. And so I just want to encourage those of you who are supporting the ministry that I'm here firsthand, and I'm telling you that we have seen incredible change in pretty much all of the girls that we've ministered to. Not all of them are success cases, but for the most part, we're just so thrilled with what God has done in their lives.
Yeah, and I think, another point about what we do is first and foremost, we have to gain their trust, and we're here for their safety and for their recovery first. And then it's once they trust you and, they're calling you Dad, that's when the faith conversations can come in their real sense. And that's when they start to want to know more about Jesus and want to have that faith, because they know you, and they know you're a pastor, and they see the life that you live, and they've grown to trust you. And I think that's when the faith piece really comes in what we do at Path to Freedom, because it's not first, I know there are other faith organizations that their number one thing is like, how many people that can we count that, we've saved or brought to Christ or told the gospel to. And that's not our number one thing. That is not that, but that happens to be what happens when the girls are with us.
Yes.
And it's through that love and the safety and the trust and the relationships that they're building as a family that makes them open to hearing it and wanting to know about it. So I commend you, you and Melanie, because that's what you do. But so I'm going to read, and And we've done that in the past as well, because I also wanted to also give kudos our prior. We did spend, before you guys came, the first year and a half. I'm going to go back to a girl that this is from 2021. And so this was August. So we called her Emily. And at this time, she'd been with us she was one of our first girls. So, and of course, in the beginning, there was a lot of trial and error, right? With what we were doing. So, and she was one of our longest ones, and you knew her too. So you might know who I'm talking about. But so you also served as house parents for this girl. Okay. But she said, I was angry all the time when I first came here, but now I can walk around with a genuine smile. I didn't really know I was so angry because I was covering it up and didn't really understand it. I also didn't think I would be staying here originally. And she was with us for 2.5 years. Right. She said, I figured out my point of anger was that I didn't protect myself as a kid and from being around certain people in my childhood. I found my source of anger through therapy and help from the Magnolia House mentors. I'm reacting now more with love than anger and trying to be more loving in general. I didn't know what love was before or what it was like to be part of a family. And I've learned that by being here. 95% of my heart is back together, and I haven't felt so content in all my life. And another thing that she says, again, this through the same interview, she's like, after going through some difficult times in my life, I have learned while at Magnolia House that God has always been there for me. I have always had God in my life, but I didn't truly create that relationship with him. Since being here, I have finally learned that prayer helps. I pray all the time now, and it's part of my everyday life. My faith has grown by taking the time to pray, listen to Christian music, and I have a daily relationship with God that I didn't have before. I'm still human and I make mistakes, but now I react with prayer and when something goes wrong. It's helpful when I pray because I can release my anger, and I know he is always there for me. In the past, I wasn't willing to understand God and I didn't have a real Christ relationship. Thankfully, I have that now. Wow. So, and that was her. And then, more recently with, I'm going to go to Annie, who is, so that was one from way in the beginning. And Annie is one that we're still serving today. So this was very recent, this month, where she says that the biggest change of my life over the past 5 months has been going to church and committing my life to Jesus. I have learned that turning your life over to Jesus is the best decision you can make. Things can go wrong in your life, but you can go to him all the time. He knows everything that happens to you and has a plan for you. I rededicated my life to Jesus when I came here. Being baptized was a very loving moment for me. The environment made me feel comfortable and I felt released from my past. So many people came that I didn't expect. It was a very important moment and a special time for me. I waited for that day my whole life. I was nervous, but it changed me. It washed my past away. I got baptized and committed my life to Christ, which is a really big step. So, and I know you were the one who actually baptized this particular girl. So yeah, I could go on. There's other ones about the education and experiences.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And it's just incredible when I'm listening to you talk about the girls. There was something I forgot that I wanted to share, that in each of the girls, they come to us with such big issues, such really big issues. Sometimes there's personality issues that they're facing, sin issues, whatever it might be. I mean, they're really, really broken. And what I've found that is, even as a pastor, even as, a granddad, that it's been interesting that I can find myself in each one of them, like even in some of their struggles. I might not struggle to the same degree, but it's been very convicting for me. Like there's no judgment from me to them. Because of that. And so it's been very humbling, to say the least. Yeah. So in closing, is there anything else that you want to share about Path to Freedom, ways that people can help? Is there anything else that you can share?
Well, obviously, funding is always needed. and they can go to our website, pathtofreedom.org. There's a donate page. We do have a fund a need page, which does describe a little bit about this second home that we are looking to be able to fund. And then also we have our annual gala, which is every year, in this year happens to be in January, which is our biggest fundraiser if people are interested in that. There's also a page that says getting involved in terms of volunteer opportunities. Right now, we have been blessed with an overabundance of people wanting to volunteer, particularly because of Sound of Freedom. And so we have a lot coming through the process. And because, there's a long process that they have to go through if they want to work directly with the girls.
Sure.
Which I think also is another testament to, what we do and the safety and how important. So they have to go through 21 hours of online coursework. They have to get a background check and fingerprinted. But we have so many going through that process right now that we are halting, adding more into that. So there is a list of other ways people can help. There's a lot of little things people can do. There are definitely items, household items, as you know, that we could always use. We can always use paper goods, whether it's toilet paper, paper towels, laundry detergent. And, those types of everyday things that are expensive, and the cost of everything is getting, going up. Walmart gift cards and Publix and things like that. We're just doing our everyday shopping for these girls. So all of that is needed, and spreading the word, because we are still a relatively new organization. So people just hearing about who is Path to Freedom and what do they do, and following us on social media and things like that is super helpful. And of course, prayer. So prayer for us, prayer for our growth, prayer for, the courage to continue, because every day it's tough. And I know, there's a lot, Satan really wants to, when he sees good works going on, he wants to destroy them. So he'll do it in all kinds of different ways. And so just prayer that all of us as staff and the wonderful volunteers that we have, that we can stay strong and continue to do the right thing and not get worn out and discouraged. And, because things aren't always going to be perfect, and every girl isn't always going to do or be exactly what we hoped all this pouring out towards them is going to result in. And also we're planting seeds, right? So to know that even if they may not be what we were hoping the recovery would be right away, they'll remember what they experienced with us for the rest of their lives. So you never know when they're going to go back to remembering that and wanting to do something different with their lives than whatever it is they're doing today that may not be what we were hoping they'd be doing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's also, just check out the website, pathtofreedom.org, and it's path, the number 2, freedom. So it's not spelled out, but it's path, the number 2, freedom.org. And you can check out more information. You can see what the longer term vision is there. And maybe there's someone watching this now where you're feeling that you're led to give towards this ministry, maybe in a small way, or maybe in a really, really big way. This plan that we want to pursue as far as getting another house, that's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But then the larger term vision of having a campus someday, if God wills that we're talking $15 million, $20 million. But there's nothing that's too big for God to do. And maybe God has blessed you in a way where you want to underwrite part of that, or even all of that. I mean, I don't know who's watching this and when you're watching this. Maybe you're watching this, we're recording it in 2023. Maybe you're watching it in 2028 or 2030, or you're watching it somewhere around the world someday. This is a worthy ministry to give towards. So many times, we give money and we're not sure exactly how it's being used, or if it's being used the right way, or we feel like it might be a little bit pointless. I can tell you that this ministry is worthwhile. It's a ministry that deserves to be supported, and there's so many great things that could be done. And I know that God will provide anyway. So is there any last words you want to share, Barb?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And, it's just, this is, in my opinion, just one of the most horrific crimes against children. And so I'm glad that we're here to do something about it. And it would be amazing someday if our services were not needed.
Yeah.
But there is a huge need. So, any support that we can get to continue to grow, because really we want to grow, to continue to help with that need that's out there.
So thank you, Barb, for being with us, and thank you for watching. And we will pray that God will move in your hearts to support this ministry, even if it's just prayer. We definitely need the prayers, and we pray that God will continue to bring you help and hope in this hurting world. God bless you.